Hello, friends. I'm Winnie Sun, your host, Forbes contributor, CNBC Council member, and award winning financial pro, here to keep you on top of relevant trending business news. And more importantly, as you know, you're part of today's discussion. So it is such a treat to be here with each of you because I have a very special guest to be introducing to you later on in the show. It's always a special day to be here with you. Here's what I want to say. This was also a really big story that came out today, which I'm really excited to have Holly join us in just a moment because I want to tackle this with her and see what her thoughts are on this. But, as you know, shoppers, the last, not the always, but for certainly the last couple decades, have really enjoyed online shopping, right? Online shopping, super convenient. We can do so in our pajamas. We can do so 7 days a week. Really no holiday when it comes to online shopping. But one of the negatives to online shopping is the story of returns, right? And so during the pandemic, more of us, probably because we didn't have as many options of things to do, more of us were doing more online shopping than ever before. But that also then translated to having to make more returns than ever before. Because I don't know about you, but I'm sure you're like me. Like traditionally, we would go to a store, maybe we would buy something, we would touch it, see, maybe buy clothing, see how it felt. I certainly bought my share of children's clothing for my kids. And, sometimes what you see on screen doesn't directly translate to what you receive then in a box shipped to your front door. Well, retailers are definitely feeling the pinch on this because retailers are saying that on average, they're receiving back over 16% of the merchandise that customers purchased last year in 2021. Now, this was a study that came from our friends at the National Retail Federation, the NRF. So that's a jump because in 2020, people were returning about 10%, a little bit more than 10%. So it's, more than 50% jump there on that number. Now, this equates to, believe it or not, and this adds up to more than $761 billion of merchandise. That's right, that have been returned last year. It's crazy. So retailers are saying this is definitely a big problem because obviously when you make returns, shipping costs and whatnot, this just costs money, right? Inventory, all this stuff. So these are costs that are now going to somehow trickle themselves down to the price tags of future items that we're going to be buying. Now, some of the savvier, growth-oriented e-commerce companies are saying they're really paying attention to this trend. They're going to find ways to maybe combat that and smarter, maybe utilize some technology such as 3D images and artificial intelligence, AI tools, so that what we buy maybe has a better chance of not being returned. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But that's actually some pretty big news because for those of you who are paying attention to inflation costs like I am, we don't ever want things to get more expensive. We want things to keep at certain levels or lower so that way our monies can last a lot longer. So let's do this. Let me welcome the one and only Holly Worst to the show. Holly, how are you today?
Hi, Winnie. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Thank you so much for being here with us. It is a treat to have you with us. Holly, I'm just going to introduce you real quickly. You're the Senior Director of Vertical Growth for Retail at Worldpay from FIS. And we know that you have over 12 years of retail and consulting experience. So I know you have an opinion on the story we just talked about. And you previously worked for Wolverine Worldwide. I'm going to tell you, my kids would love that name of that company, Bain and Company. And we know that you provide a global perspective of a retail, having lived and worked across 5 different continents. I love that because I love travel, and obviously you've traveled all over and you've lived at different places. We definitely want to learn more about you for sure. But let's do this. Let's start with a little bit of trivia because I thought this would sort of kind of kick things off a little bit. So here are the questions. Here's the question. What's the value of global transactions for digital payments? Is it 7 billion, 5.2 billion, that's a B, right? Or 5.2 trillion, I said, that's our answer B. 6.6 trillion, or is it 100 billion, or is it 3.4 trillion? These are very specific numbers. My producers really had some fun doing this. I'm loving this. All right. I'm curious to see what you see. Vicky is giving us a strong C there. She's saying she's going C. Okay, so C is 6.6 trillion. CrossX Spider is giving us an E. Okay, 3.4 trillion.
I'm going to say trillion, so I'm going to go with B. Because I know a lot of payments are still.
All right. If anybody watching wants to give Holly a lifeline right now, feel free to. And just so you know, she's not supposed to know this answer because we purposely make it fun here. So actually, I'm going to give you the answer because the answer is, believe it or not, the answer is C. So statistics show that the global digital payments industry has hit 5.4 trillion value in 2020. So this is about a 16% increase year over year. So this space is growing more than ever. But the nice thing about this trivia question and why this is so much fun today is because we have an expert with us in Holly. And this is an area, Holly, I feel like we should talk about this. You know, you heard the story earlier. Does this surprise you of the increase in returns? Because it didn't really surprise me.
Yeah, not at all. As we move more online, I mean, think about every time it's just more accessible. So we'll buy a piece of clothing and you'll get it in every size. You'll try it on in your own home and then you'll take it back. But if you were in the store, you'd get to try it on and just take home the one piece of clothing. So it's definitely a problem. I saw it when I was working in retail, and it's just going to it's going to become a much bigger problem as we move more to online shopping.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I had a chance to get to go to Zappos and go through their tour and whatnot. And I know Tony Hsieh's big thing for that was, you know, he would say, you know, you can order the shoe in every size and just return what you don't need. And I think as consumers, we've sort of gotten used to that where we know that returns should be free, paying free, and cost free and relatively easy for us. But we know, but there's a cost to that. And there's certainly a lot of retailers that still charge you to return, but there's a lot of intrinsic costs to that: the shipping costs, the manpower, the putting everything back in stock. So those are things that sometimes are challenges, but could be also a great opportunity. So I love to talk to you, Holly, about e-commerce. You know, we've enjoyed online shopping for years now, and we just talked about how it's sort of heightened due to the pandemic. So when you think about the pandemic, can you talk about how this has impacted maybe your day-to-day job and that of your company?
Yeah, honestly, it's been such a whirlwind. So we're very lucky that we have over 1 million merchants on our books, from the biggest retailers out there to even SMB. And so we saw some retailers, a lot of them actually, just move a lot of their business online. And so it's great during the pandemic is usually in times of recession, retail actually backs off from investing in technology or investing at all. But we saw that wasn't possible. So retailers were coming to us and looking for innovative ways to keep business going during the pandemic. So the move to online was big. In grocery, you saw a ton of autonomous checkouts. So whether that was scan, pay, and go technology, so those guns when you're shopping around the store, or using your mobile phone as an actual checkout mechanism, or trying to adopt just walk out technology like what you're seeing at Amazon Go. So we had a lot of fun working with retailers looking into those types of innovations.
I love that, Holly. You're right. I'm glad you say that's fun because I would say from a consumer standpoint, that's absolutely fun too, right? That ease of, like you said, this, I think they call it scan and go, right? And even so recently, like I just finished a multi-state road trip back home. Like the amount of places where you can use your phone, scan a QR code to fill up your tank too. It's so interesting how different it is to be able to pay for things. And I think that as a consumer and consumers of the future, we like that flexibility, that giving us different options. I actually can't remember the last time I took out and used cash. It's been quite some time, and it's good to hear, Holly, that how much your business has been thriving and helping more businesses, millions of businesses worldwide, to conduct more business. Because certainly this pandemic has changed business for many of us. Now let's talk about this. You know, you and I kind of talked about this before we started air, but you know, we're really never without our smartphones these days. And even in other countries, I know you've traveled so many different places, and people spend and conduct financial business so differently depending on where you're at, right? In many countries, few people actually carry wallets. Everything is just smartphone based. I remember I was in Taiwan, and literally, like, you could go to like a farmer's market and you would pull out your phone. Like, you would go to the parking garage and pull out your phone. There, you would never actually pay for anything with cash and definitely not even credit card. So talk about that. Consumer adoption of online and mobile payments continues to grow. So what do you see as the future trends in the payment space? What do we have to look forward to?
Yeah, what's great is, being a global business, we do see the big trend. So like Asia is huge with using the mobile phone. I think it's around 70 to even 90% of payments are made with the phone. When in the US, we're just not quite there yet and we're playing catch up. But some of the cool tech that's coming around, because now you're seeing a really big blend between the online and the physical world because of the phone. It's completely changed the way we get to live our lives. And so you're going to see buy now, pay later get even bigger than it already is. So this is something that in Australia, we see that 1 in 5 of online purchases are made with buy now, pay later. That's huge. Think about that's what PayPal is. So PayPal was something, 10 years ago, we were like, oh, is it going to be a big thing? And here it's one of the number one digital payment methods in the world. So everyone definitely needs to take note of buy now, pay later.
Buy
Another
now,
thing,
pay later.
yeah. Another thing I would say we're seeing a lot of, and that's quite interesting, is bank transfers. So this is kind of a geeky topic when it comes to payments, but bank transfers traditionally is kind of a boring thing that you would do just to pay your rent or your utilities. However, with the adoption of the mobile phone, you're now able to make a bank transfer on your phone. And so you can be anywhere, including in store. So we're having some retailers kind of innovate with this technology because it's much cheaper for a merchant to accept a bank transfer versus the high fees that you would see with credit cards and debit cards. And so it's going to be quite interesting to see how maybe we could use bank transfers via the phone in store on smaller purchases.
So, Holly, that's so interesting because when you think about typically when you're thinking about a bank transfer, right? Like it's a traditional wire transfer, that I think turns it gives a lot of consumers a little heebie-jeebies. Before like the PayPal's came into place and Venmos, there was concern that well, if I were to transfer cash, that's so permanent. There's no safety measure to that. But now you're saying for smaller transactions, that actually might be more of a thing too. That's really interesting to see. And as someone who's a big points and miles person, that yeah, I can appreciate that credit cards have more fees, but certainly I think that's what helps fund a lot of our vacation dollars too. So, it's one of those yin and yang things. So very, very interesting. And those of you who are joining us out here, I want to say I see Paul Hari. Thank you so much for joining us on Facebook Live today. If you have any questions for Holly, definitely don't be shy. Definitely share them with us and we'll try to bring them in as well. This is a very interesting area of fintech where everything's evolving so quickly. So I'd like to hear from your standpoint. I know, obviously in your world, in your role at a very large company, some of the trends that you're seeing in your industry, what are some things that you're already seeing that we may not have heard about that we should be paying attention to? What are things that are evolving?
Yeah, I have to mention cryptocurrency. So, something that maybe a few of us are investing in it, we've dipped our toe in it. We're not really seeing it out there in the marketplace, but WorldPay is all in here and we're really excited about it. So, like I run the retail strategy team, we actually have an entire crypto team. And as of last year, it was probably one person, and now we're looking at 50 people. So it just shows how much this tech, we're at the forefront of something. It's not quite at the tipping point yet, but those early adopters are getting on this train. And we're having governments ask us about how to accept cryptocurrency as a settlement method. We're having merchants come to us asking if consumers are looking at it. We have a big piece of research that just came out. It's called the Generation Pay Report, and it looks at how different generations like to pay for things. And one of the questions we did ask them was, are you interested in cryptocurrency? Is this something you're willing to use at the checkout? And what we're seeing now is people are interested, they're intrigued, but they're not ready to spend with it yet. So I think right now you're kind of seeing those early adopters. So in 2, 3 years, I think we could have a much bigger conversation about crypto and be using it on an everyday basis.
I think that's the thing is with consumers in general just want choice and they want to be heard. So I think it's really smart to just find out what today's consumer and of course our consumer of the future what will be their method of, what how they prefer to pay for things, and the different options that they have. It's so interesting. I do welcome the day where we don't have to carry holly. I mean, I do welcome the day where we don't have to carry much more, and maybe everything will be conducted by a smart watch. Don't even need the phone anymore, and you can just go and take care of business and get things paid for. And I do think like there's definitely some opportunities to streamline, especially in the financial industry, which has traditionally been pretty a little bit antiquated. But fintech is really exciting. So let's talk about that a little bit. The industry of fintech, it just seems it's really, really evolving. And I think we talked about for years being very much sort of a dinosaur industry. Things were done a certain way, but that's starting to change. It seems to be a really innovative period for fintech, how money is moved, and it's constantly changing. So how does a company as big as yours, and surely your competitors as well, how do you keep up, to make sure that you still stay relevant, not only for you and I today, but for our grandchildren, and even younger? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I would actually say working at Worldpay and a fintech and payments, my job has constantly changed. So I've been working at Worldpay for 2 years, and every 6 months something happens, whether we buy a company, a new technology is invented, or some regulations passed in some market. And my role will change slightly as we investigate that. And it keeps it really exciting. But the way Worldpay really stays ahead of the game is in multiple ways. So first, is primary research. I mentioned the Generation Pay report, but another report that we do on a yearly basis, it's become kind of the industry Bible of payments, is called the Global Payments Report. And last year we investigated 40 different countries around the world. And we asked consumers, how do you like to pay online and in store? So similar to that choice that you were talking about. And we start to see trends of what consumers are starting to adopt, like buy now, pay later or crypto. And what's great is that not only teaches me and my team and the employees what's going on, we use it to inform our product roadmap, and we use it to educate our merchants. And so it's a great tool to kind of stay ahead of the game. And secondly, is we talk to our customers. Like we said, we have 1 million merchants. It's amazing. We work with the biggest companies in the world. And so we get to innovate with them. So if someone in America is looking into autonomous checkout and just walk out and implementing the Amazon Go tech, we can then bring that information and that trend to retailers in Europe or retailers in Latin America, and vice versa. As live streaming is becoming huge in Asia, we're bringing that knowledge and expertise over to our Western clients. So it's always great to we learn from our consumers by quizzing them, but also learning from our customers.
I love that. I mean, I think that's key, right? It's like you want to make sure that you get the opinion from both sides of the table, the consumer as well as the retailer. You talked about something earlier, and that was like the buy now, pay later. Is that sort of like the modern version of layaway? Because that sounds like that is.
Yeah, I actually love to say if anyone ever remembers Kmart layaway, it's the new sexy version of that. And what's great, these companies are doing an amazing job of marketing to young millennial consumers. They have great ads out there. And so if retailers haven't been looking at it, you definitely should. Like I said, in Australia, it's huge. People will own 1, 2, 3 accounts. In Sweden, it's huge. In Europe, it's getting bigger. And so, yeah, it's really cool. And I think in the future, we'll probably all have 1 or 2 accounts that we play around with.
Oh, interesting. So, as a financial person in the room, I'm hoping when you're listening to this that obviously you don't buy what you can't afford, and use this responsibly, because I can gives
Yeah.
me a little heebie-jeebies when I think about like buy now, pay later. But everybody has choice. We got to have choice. So lastly, let's talk about this. You attended NRF, which is the National Retail Federation, one of the world's largest retail trade association conferences. I know it was in New York City. I absolutely love New York City. Typically, if this wasn't a pandemic, we would probably be in New York right now at our NASDAQ studios filming this live. But let's talk about that. I mean, how did this conference differ from previous years? And what really stood out to you as things that you want to share with us so we could pay attention to?
Yeah. So, first off, hats off to the organizers for making sure the show still went on. Unfortunately, Omicron hit in New York right when the show was about to happen. But they did all the precautions necessary to make people feel safe to still attend. So the people who were there, that was one of my biggest takeaways is everyone was so excited to be in person, talking live, listening to the discussions, asking questions, networking. And it was just a really great feeling to know that retail in 2022 is here to stay and people are excited to talk about the future. And then the biggest kind of tech trend that I'm seeing that I was the most excited about, and that I feel like every discussion I went to or every partner I talked to, they mentioned the metaverse. So right now we're in this kind of cool, unique discovery phase where a lot of brands are doing some fun NFTs and they're opening up their own shops in the metaverse, but a lot of us still don't even know how to get on it. So I think it's going to be a fun journey to take with our merchants and with our consumers to learn about, will we become Ready Player One, the book, and will we be living in the metaverse in the future? But there's some really cool tech and innovations that can come from it.
It is really interesting. The whole concept of the metaverse, I mean, you can't stop it, Holly. It's coming. So we might as well get ready and learn a little bit more about it. For those of you who are joining us live, I know many of you join me for the loop as well. We've talked about that. And three metaverse. I mean, this is like sort of the future, and it's good to really attend. And Holly, it's wonderful to hear that the conference still was able to push through, rally through, even in this crazy pandemic time. And I'm with you. I miss those one-on-one conversations, but it's certainly I'm very grateful that we could spend today together, even virtually live streaming. It's really, really fun. And by the way, Holly, I think Vicky's going to get tickled hearing this. Where are you joining us from today?
Yeah, I'm actually from London, UK. So it's nighttime, as you can see from outside, but originally from Texas.
Amazing. I was in Texas just a few days ago, and I wish I was where you are. But you know what? Hopefully things will get better soon. But let's do this, my friends. I know, Joshua, I know you love this. This is our speed round. Let's have some fun.
Speed round.
So, Holly, you get 1 minute and we get to ask you two questions. So, let me ask you this. So, Holly, if you could pick any place to live today for a whole month, where would you go? And who would you take with you?
I would go to Spain to practice my Spanish and finally master it. It's been years. And I would take my mother. So she recently retired and she hasn't gotten to travel as much as I did when I was younger. So I'd love to take her there and introduce her to new cultures.
Oh my goodness, I love the fact. I love how you're saying I would love to master Spanish. I That would be amazing. By the way, I know that Spain has some of the best restaurants ever, so I think that would be a double win there. All right. Next question, Holly, would be tell us your aha yes factor moment.
Yeah. So I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, I entered business school at Kellogg Northwestern in Chicago. And I was working at a retailer and I loved it. And I was, progressing quite slowly in my career, but it was entering business school and being surrounded by these amazing humans who were doing such cool stuff in their lives. Everyone was extremely dedicated, hardworking, and they just really wanted to change the world. And I think that's the moment that I really stepped back in not just my personal life, but my career and decided, you know what, let's go for it. Let's move to England. Let's try to do it. And so that was the decision. That was the time that I made the decision to move across the world, which was always my dream. And I've been loving it ever since.
Wow, amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I'm sure that's inspiring many of you watching because it's like that moment where she just said, okay, I'm going to do it. Let's do this. And she said yes. Thank you so much, Holly, for being here. What a treat. It's been an honor to get to know you. Of course, learn more about your company and the work that Worldpay does as well. So thank you so much for your generous shares and talking to us and telling us what we can look forward to in the payment processing world. Fintech is kind of cool, right? Fintech is kind of interesting. Those of you watching, I can see a whole bunch of comments. I think that you enjoyed this as much as I did. So thank you so much, my friends, for watching, supporting our program. please take a moment to share this show with someone that you care about. And, social media definitely counts. And as a reminder, you can find full episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun on the CW San Francisco, NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Be well, and I can't wait to see you later this week. Thank you so much, Holly.